Hi everyone, it's Laura here over at Dance School Startup. I hope you're all well and having a nice day. I've had a really nice morning outside with my son. The sun is shining, I'm feeling really lifted. So it's a really good day to sit down and record your answers to the questions that you've submitted this week. Thank you so much everyone. I really appreciate the questions that you've put forward and I'm looking forward to getting stuck in. So let's get started. So the first question this week is from Victoria and it says, when do you think is the right time to hire another teacher? And ultimately I think the answer is as soon as you need one, because in your first stages of owning a school, you will do most of it yourself. You're going to be the dance teacher, you're going to be the cleaner, you're going to be the administrator, you're going to do everything. And when it gets to a point where you feel like you can't do all those things anymore, it's time to start thinking about adding someone to your team. And it can be a really scary time because if you've done everything yourself for so long and it becomes your baby and you're kind of, don't want to share it with anybody else. But it's also a really exciting time because it means that you're expanding and it means that good things are happening and things are going in the right direction. So I think as soon as you feel like it's time, in your gut, you're ready, bring somebody in. And then I guess the next question is, how? Or what do I look for? And we've spoken about it recently in another episode, but I think with a teacher, it's just important to find somebody that is going to be committed to you for a period of time. I think sometimes if you bring somebody in who perhaps is still actively auditioning in the industry and is quite likely to leave you at a moment's notice, it can get quite difficult for you because when you start to put your trust into somebody and delegating some of your work off, you want someone that's going to be around for a little while to make sure that you have some continuity for you and for your children or your students. And it's difficult for children to bond with another teacher if they're only going to be around for say 6 weeks. So if at all possible, I would really recommend that when the time is right and you do feel like it's time to start looking for another teacher, that you spend the time finding someone that actually really wants to go into that career of teaching, or at least is going to be committed for a period of time that you're happy with. And then that way you know that you can put some trust into that person, give them some workload that you feel like you can then take off of your shoulders, but also be safe in the knowledge that they're not going to leave at a moment's notice. And ultimately, the students are going to have time to bond with them as well. So have a think about those things. But in response to the actual question, the time is right when it's needed, when it's necessary. If you feel like you can keep going without having another member of staff and you don't feel like you need to add that cost to your monthly outgoings, another person to pay for, then don't do it. But if you feel like you're starting to get overwhelmed and maybe you're working too many hours or you're trying to pull yourself in too many directions, the time is right. So just listen to your gut and you will know. And as I say, be excited because that ultimately means your business is growing, your school is growing, and isn't that great? That's what you want. So ultimately it's a good thing. Okay, so our next question is from Fiona. Thank you, Fiona. It is, any ideas to get more boys involved in classes? Now, I was really excited to answer this one because I actually have a boys program at my school, which I started about, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago, and it was a game changer. We all know that getting boys into dance schools is like getting blood out of a stone sometimes. I actually have around, I think we were up to about 30, just under 30 boys in the school, and that is a big deal to have that many boys. And we started off, I sat down with my staff and I said to them, look, I really want to incorporate something that just draws the boys' attention. And you have to be careful because lads are sensitive to the fact that it is still very much a thing that dancing is not, maybe something that's popular for boys to do, and they are submitted to bullying at school and it puts them off joining in things like especially ballet or classical styles of dance. It's getting better, but I think ultimately we all know it's got a long way to go. So I decided to start a boys program, and what that was I just literally started with a boys only class and then built from there, but I marketed it as a boys program. So the ultimate goal was that eventually I wanted to get the boys in, get them excited, and then start adding them into other things once they felt comfortable in our environment. And that's what I did. We started off with, I think it was about 13, 14 boys in a boys' jazz workout. We called it jazz workout. So we didn't go down the street or hip hop route, which we did consider doing at first because that was definitely something that was considered a lot cooler. But we're not a big hip hop school. So personally for us, it was easiest for us to go with something that we thought they might be interested in and that we knew we could deliver really, really well. So we did a jazz workout, but there was a lot of focus on strength and conditioning. So the boys felt like they were really working out as well as learning how to dance. My member of staff that takes the boys class, she still takes it now. She's absolutely brilliant. She's much better than me because she loves football. She's a bit of a tomboy herself, and she wouldn't mind me saying that. So when she teaches the boys, the way that she talks to them and the way that she interacts with them, she really tries to get on a level with them and make sure that she's using moves that they will like and enjoy doing and feel as a challenge, and also talk to them using imagery that is very much on their wavelength. For example, using football terms, which, let's face it, I would be useless at because I know nothing about football. So if you're anything like me, you might want to find someone to come in and work with your boys. But it doesn't have to be a male dance teacher, although that is always brilliant because it's so nice for them to be inspired by somebody who is a male dancer. But if you don't have that option, then just think about, if you're the person that's going to be teaching the boys, how you can just make sure that you make it tailor-made to what they need, because it's very, very different to how you would potentially run a girls class, a girls only class. You don't want them to feel like they're kind of a bit of an extra. You want them to feel like they're very much integrated into the community, because there's always going to be less of them, and that's just kind of the way it is at the moment. Fingers crossed that will change in the future. But other things that I did that I really think helped was things like, when I first started, I wanted to make sure that my branding was unisex. My colours are black and red. I mean, that's pretty unisex, so that didn't put anybody off. There wasn't a lot of pink, and what I call sort of gender-specific colours that people like to use, pink and blue. I was kind of really against all that, so I just went with red because it just seemed like something that was somewhere in the middle. The way that I decorated my studio as well, I really took time to make sure that it didn't look really either girly or laddie. It was just somewhere in the middle. Again, I went with the colours, with the black and the reds. It's quite a dramatic vibe, but again, everyone feels comfortable there. They're not walking into a sea of pictures of girls in tutus. I make sure that there are male dancers in the pictures on the walls. I make sure that the boys from my school are used in photo shoots regularly, so that when I'm advertising anything to do with the boys, I've got pictures of lads to use. There's no point, trying to get boys in if you're just going to use girls in a picture. So things like that really, really helped. And then the other thing that I did was I created a boys collection for our uniform, and that went down an absolute treat. So we called it #Gillam Boys, and it's like they've got a different jumper, they've got sports shorts, sports vest, a different t-shirt, and it's very similar to the main uniform because they can have the main uniform as well, but this was a collection that was in addition to the main uniform, and it had like #Gillam Boys written down the arm, and it had like the hoods were different. So the main uniform hoods are black, but the boys one had like a red interior. Just things like that. It just made them feel special. It made them feel like they were valued in our community, and I think that's just key, just making sure everyone feels equal, because unfortunately I think boys do feel quite unequal and unbalanced when they enter a dance school for the first time, and it's our job to make sure that they feel as comfortable as possible, because there's so much talent there that it could be wasted, and it would just be such a shame. So so there's a few ideas for you. Try marketing a boys only class and then slowly integrating them into other classes that are mixed. So I mean, good ones would be things like drama, musical theatre, because that's not even dance, just getting them involved in acting and singing. They're quite in my experience, the lads that I've got in my school are quite up for doing that sort of thing. Ballet was the most difficult, but what I did was I kind of went down the route of getting them down the jazz technique training, noticing skills within them, and then really explaining to them, you've got something here, let's work on that. And And I know what you're going to say. I know you're going to say no to this, or you're going to try and say no, but think about ballet. Just come along, try a class. Let me show you what it's all about. Let me show you how athletic it is. Let me show you how challenging it is, and see if you enjoy it, and then we'll go from there. And if they don't want to wear leotard and tights, that's fine. Don't make them. That can come later as they get older. Once they get to sort of 15, 16 and they've been doing it for years, they don't care anymore. They're hooked. They're emotionally involved. But leading up to that time, just be as accommodating as possible. And eventually you'll get to a point where then you get known for being a school that's got lots of boys in it. And then once you've got that, it is just going to fly. Because once boys knows that there are a lot of boys in one school, everyone just flocks to that school because that's where all the boys are. So give that a go and see how that works. Sit down and plan a little map of how you could potentially incorporate that into your timetable, and just go for it as much as you possibly can. And I really do think it's the most rewarding thing if you get a group of lads in who are all lads together and then they really stick at it. And it's been great for us, so I hope that helps. Give it a go because you will find it super rewarding. Okay, next question, also from Fiona. Thank you, Fiona. How would I go about introducing exams into my school? So, I think exams are a really great way of working out a child's progress, particularly for the parents. Ultimately, an exam it's a situation that's subjective. One person will come in, look at your students, and basically just justify to everybody that you are right, they're ready to move up to the next level. That's kind of really what an exam is. It's just confirming that you were right and they're good enough, and then they move up to the next stage. So, but for parents, it kind of gives them something on a topic that they probably don't know too much about, just to prove that their child is learning something. So for progress reasons, I think exams are great. There are so many different exam boards out there now. When I first started teaching, the three main ones, if you like, were RAD, ISTD, IDTA, and that was kind of all I knew about. And actually, I didn't even really know about the IDTA until quite a few years into running my school, because none of the schools around where I lived did the IDTA syllabus. It was all RAD, ISTD. So then my eyes were open that there were other syllabi out there, and now there are tons, and there are some really, really good ones. And you shouldn't be afraid of trying a syllabus that's maybe quite new either, because I think a lot of people will think, oh yeah, but these people haven't been around for a long time, and they're not as well known or maybe as well accredited as some of the bigger associations. But if you're just starting out, then why not try these things now? Some of these newer associations have got some amazing people on board that are current. Their syllabus for their modern and jazz is going to be unbelievably up to date, which perhaps some of the longer term associations aren't. To be as diplomatic as possible, a lot of the ISTD modern I learned in the late 80s, and it's not changed. So you might find that some of these new associations have got a lot to offer, so don't be afraid to use them. Anyway, I digress. So, with regards to introducing exams, a couple of things that I would recommend. Number one, I would recommend that you put together a little guide to exams that answers all the questions that people are bound to have. I would spend hours having conversations with parents about why their child had not been entered for an exam. And one day I just thought, I can't do this anymore. This is crazy. I'm just having to justify myself to people every single day. There must be a way. So I sat down and I got my Canva account up, and I just designed a guide, a parent's guide to dance exams. What we look for, how we decide if a child is ready, what will happen going into the exam, and then what happens after they've taken the exam. And I'm not kidding. Since I did that handbook, the questions gone. I can't express to you enough people don't ask me anymore, because as soon as it's exam time, I send that out to absolutely everyone in the school, and everyone reads it and sees quite literally in black and white how this is going to work. And they know in advance the reason why their child might not have been picked, because it's all written there for them clearly. And I don't go into detail as in, for this grade, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. It's not that detailed. But what it does do, it gives people that have got no idea about dance exams, because let's face it, a lot of parents, they might not have danced as kids. And this is actually something that I really didn't take into consideration. When I first started out, I would be like, this is so obvious. Why are they asking me this? But if you've never danced before, you've got no idea. I mean, my son's just before lockdown started rugby. Well, his dad knows loads about rugby, but I know nothing. So, for me, if they're going to start saying, oh, we're going to do this competition, just this match, that would probably be the way to say it. I told you I don't know anything. I'd need as much information as possible, because I'm blooming useless. So, there's a lot of parents out there, they need their hand held through, because ultimately, when you don't put a child in for an exam, the child might not be that upset about it, but you have literally hurt the soul of the parent. Some people are going to be nodding along with me on this if they've experienced it. That parent is like, it's like you've done a direct attack on them. And another thing happens is that suddenly all these parents become expert dance teachers, and they will be like, well, so-and-so's daughter's doing their exam and they're not as good as my daughter, etc., etc. So basically what I want to say to you is, having a guide, a Q&A kind of, or frequently asked questions, I think that's what I called mine, for exam time at your school, eliminates all of those questions and just stops people asking them. So definitely consider that straight off the bat. That is one of my big things that I would recommend. So once you've decided what association you want to use, if you hadn't already, most people just go with what they grew up with, because it's easier, but you're 9 times out of 10 you're already a member. But if you see another association, obviously you could incorporate that in. You've done your frequently asked questions. It then comes to setting up your first exam session. Now, this is something actually that I'm going to be doing a course on. I'm putting together a course about certain things that will happen to us all at some point in our dance school owning life. Putting on a show, doing a first exam session, setting up a system within your school, like systemizing your business, that sort of stuff. I'm putting together some things for that in the background, so I will share those with you as soon as they're ready. But putting on your first exam session just takes a lot of coordination. So just make sure you get on these things early. Once you've decided you're going to go for it, you need to let everybody know your dates. Get your dates booked in as early as your association will allow you to do so. And then you can start planning. Because the thing about exams, when you first start out and you haven't got too many students, it's quite straightforward. But when you end up with 200 students and some of them are taking maybe 3 genres of exam, you can be there for a week doing exams day in, day out, and it does get quite big quite quickly. So preparation is key. So just make sure that you get your dates in as early as you possibly can, so that you've got plenty of time to organise it all. I won't go too much into the detail of setting up your first exam session, because as I say, I'm going to be offering some content on that later. But yeah, so that's how I would start it off anyway. Decide which board you want to use, and also don't feel like you have to use one board for all subjects. I don't. We use ISTD for ballet and we use IDTA for tap, amongst other things. So you don't have to just do everything with one board. You might feel like you can deliver one syllabus better than another, and ultimately if you feel more comfortable in a syllabus and you feel like you can deliver it better, then that's better for everybody. So you're not going to get sick of it. The student's experience is going to be better because you are behind the syllabus. If you're teaching the same old tired stuff that you've been doing for years and years and years, and you feel completely like demotivated, then it's no good for anyone. You're not going to get the results that you want anyway. And on results, the one other thing that I would say is, if you do decide to do a exam session, you want to have that conversation with any parent that's doing exams for the first time about just how it works with results, making a point that is subjective. It's one person's opinion on the day. It could be a different set of results if it was a different examiner. And just preparing people for that, explaining to them, it's not just about getting distinctions, it's about, understanding or just having that, the achievement behind all of that hard work that you've put in for a term or 2 terms or however often you do it. Some schools do several exam sessions throughout a year. Some just do it once a year. Some do it every other year. And that's another thing you need to sit down and think about going forward. But when you're first starting out, the first time you do it, just have that conversation. Be really open so that everyone knows what to expect. And then hopefully you'll have a really nice experience. And once everyone's had a good experience, then that's key, because then everyone will be happy to continue on the path of syllabus and examinations. So that's a few things there to consider. Obviously, the other thing to consider is in-house examinations. So it depends on your type of school. If you're a school that maybe you kind of want to do some sort of progress awards, but you don't necessarily want to go down a syllabus route and you don't want to be that regimented, let's say, you could perhaps do an in-house assessment. And I know a lot of schools that they do an in-house presentation. So you put together your own little syllabus. The students then have X amount of time to learn it. And then you could incorporate it into like a watching week where the parents come in and watch the assessment. And then you do some sort of presentation. I mean, you can get medals and rosettes and stuff so cheap. You can print out certificates. So there's always that option. But it's just a nice way for everyone to feel like they've achieved something at the end of it. Because there's nothing worse than like just constantly working and working and working and there's no end goal. I just think like sometimes that's a little bit demotivating and people can kind of just get a bit bored with it. So giving people something to work towards ultimately is going to keep them committed to it. So have a consideration of that as well. If you don't want to go down the official syllabus route, have a think about doing your own. Okay, next up, our question might be a silly question, but is it worth doing door-to-door leaflets? And if so, how do you pick which streets? And that's from Lauren. Do you know what? That is not a stupid question. I'm a massive fan of leafleting. I'm not a massive fan of door-to-door leafleting though, I'll be honest. And my reasoning behind that is, if you have ever had a leaflet through the door, you might, at best, look at it and go, oh, that's interesting, and put it to one side for later. But 9 times out of 10, I think we can all agree, it ends up in the recycling bin. And leaflets aren't cheap, You can spend a bit of money on getting those leaflets printed and then distributing to the wrong people. When you are blind dropping, if you like, you don't know who's behind that door. I mean, you could literally have just dropped 25 leaflets and not one of those people have a child or a grandchild between them. You don't know. So I am a big leaflet fan, but not door to door. Now, I appreciate that at the moment, contact with people is not the easiest of things. However, fingers crossed, it is going to start getting easier. But there is nothing to stop you being at the local park and respecting social distancing and having a conversation. Because, I mean, for example, and do you know what? It's funny because I was at the park earlier with my son and I was thinking about these questions and some answers and things that, I wanted to put into this video. And while I was there, there was 2 ladies approached me again at a safe distance, and they had a leaflet, and it was like a religious leaflet, and I thought to myself, yeah, you see, it wasn't offensive. They weren't in my space, and they were able to, have a conversation with me and leave. Now, that is something that you could definitely do, and parks are full of children and probably the kind of people that you want to be talking to. And let's face it, people are quite happy at the moment to engage in a conversation because we have all been so isolated for so long. And people love talking about their kids. I mean, I love talking about my son. So if someone comes up to you and says, oh, I'm sorry to bother you. I've just got this really cool class that's starting soon. And, I would like to just give you a leaflet about it because I'm watching the kids play and they're obviously having a great time and I feel like they might enjoy my class. I'm just making this up. But, you can sell that class and say, the kids have had such a tough time. I'm trying to bring some fun, some confidence boosting because they've spent so much time in isolation for the last year. I'm trying to get them, healthy, get them active, all of these things. You can use all the right words to really hone in that this is a good idea and then give them the leaflet. You've had a conversation. It doesn't need to be long. If they engage back, brilliant. You can have a real chat and really sell it to them. And at worst, they'll just say, oh, no, thank you. And that's fine. But ultimately, at least you've sort of approached people that you think would be actually interested in your classes, in your school. Whereas when you go and just blind drop indoors, you've got no idea who's there. And it's just kind of a bit of a waste of your time, really. And it's just going to end up on the trash. So in answer to your question, I think it's a great idea. But I just think if you can, if you feel comfortable with it, if you're confident enough, approach people face to face at a safe distance, and take someone with you, someone that's like knows what they're talking about, and someone that's like that can be really like bubbly and encouraging about your school. When I first started out, I remember standing outside primary schools at kicking out time. So I would get there, let's say 10 minutes before kicking out time, when parents would just start to arrive and queue up. And I'd have conversations then, and people didn't get irritated with me. If people weren't interested, they'd just say no, thank you. But 9 times out of 10, people were interested. They'd go, oh, that's great, thank you. I'll have a look. And then some people would really want to have a chat. Oh, what do you offer? Oh yeah, do you know what? My kid's been saying she wants to do ballet. Things like that. And then you can just jump on it and do yourself, because no one's going to sell your school just as well as you will, face to face. So consider that, because I did it loads. I went to parks, I went to primary schools, senior schools, and literally just stood there with my leaflets. And at first, I was really awkward about it. And I was like, hi, I'm so sorry to disturb you. I just wanted to offer you a leaflet. I've got some new dance class. By the end of it, you're like, hi, really nice to meet you. I was getting well into the swing of it. But, and you will, it depends on your personality. If you are someone who is super confident, it'll be a breeze. And if you're someone like me who's a little bit awkward to start with, but then gets into their swing of things, then just take a deep breath, pull up your big girl pants and get on with it. Don't be afraid, because people, worst case scenario, are just going to say no, thank you. That's it. You might as well go for it, right? What have we got to lose? Next question is from Jamie. It says, we are changing the times to our current class by half an hour to fit more into the timetable. Good stuff, Jamie. We are emailing parents about our new booking system, which will make things easier for them, so lots of positivity. Great. The only thing I'm concerned with is, do we ask if the new times are okay with them, or just kind of inform them of these new times? We send the link to book their child space for when we reopen. Now, I would definitely inform them in advance. Don't just send them the link, because people need time to adjust. It's only half an hour. It's not a big deal. But to that family, half an hour could just need a little bit of swapping around. If they've got other children that are at other activities, or if they live further away, they might need to leave slightly earlier, things like that. You want to give people as much advance warning as possible. Do I think you'll have much of a problem with half an hour? No, not really. I really don't. It's not like you're changing the day, and it's not like you're changing the time by 2 or 3 hours. I think with this situation, my personal over the years, when I first started out, I would apologise for everything. I'm just going to be upfront with you. I would email the parents and be like, I'm so sorry for any inconvenience, but I've got to do this, and I blah, blah, blah. I just over-explain everything, dig. And then one day my husband said to me, why don't you just let them know? Instead of apologising and making it a big deal, why don't you just say, hi everyone, just to give you advance warning that these are the new time slots for da-da-da-da, and then finish it with, we're so excited to see you at blah, 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 blah. Best wishes, Laura. Done. And I was like, oh, yeah, but, I need to apologise because this might be really inconvenient. And he said, you know what? Yeah, it might be really inconvenient for some people, but for the majority, it's not going to be a big deal. And so don't make it a big deal. And do you know what? That was the best bit of advice my husband gave me, because I took his advice and I took a deep breath, and because I'm such a people pleaser most of the time, and I just typed out and said, this is what we're doing, X, Y, and Z. Thank you in advance for your understanding. Can't wait to see you, And it worked, and no one complained, because I didn't make it an issue. So I now live by that, to be honest, unless it is a serious situation that I need to apologise for, I just let people know in a really kind and upbeat, positive way. So I would just encourage you to just do the same. You know, I wouldn't ask them if it's okay. I'd just say this is what we're doing. Because ultimately, in a way, what's the point of asking? Because I guess if you ask them and they say no, it's not okay. Well, if you've sat that timetable and that's it now, you're not going to change it anyway. So it's kind of this is what it is. Thank you in advance for your understanding situation anyway, because ultimately you're not going to change it if they can't go. And you're never going to please everyone. There's always going to be someone that thinks, oh, that's completely inconvenient to me. I'm sorry, I can't come back. But it's going to be really rare that that actually happens. Most people will work around things. The amount of times activities have changed for my son. And I've just gone, oh, right, okay, I need to shift this and that and leave a little bit earlier, but we'll make it work. Because when it comes to your children, you just make it work. So, and for adult classes, again, a half an hour shift, it's not going to make much difference. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say here in a very long-winded and slightly rambly way is I wouldn't ask them if that's okay. I would just let them know, but I'd be very positive about it. And hopefully, fingers crossed, you shouldn't get too much problem with a half an hour change, Jamie. So I think you'll be fine. Just send them a nice email and good luck. Okay, the last question for today and this week is from Elaine, and it says, I need tips on systems to book trials and ongoing terms, essential documents or systems needed to get ready for opening. I need to get organised. I've had a lot of questions about systemising dance schools, and I've had that via a couple of people have DM'd me about this now. I know I've spoken to Elaine about it and also within the group. So this is obviously a big thing that people are going to want some training on. So I think I'm going to organise a separate training on that. Sorry, that was a fly. But let's just start with some real basics on systemising your sign-up list, because ultimately that is the first point of call. If you don't have a software system that you are using for maybe invoicing or just the general running of your school, and you're doing everything manually, or using Excel or using Google Suite or whatever, then I'm always going to say, if you don't have a software that does it for you, go to Google Forms. It's just the easiest way of doing it. Set yourself up a Google form. Then you can write in all the questions that you would need on your booking form, and then that is going to be automatically transferred to a spreadsheet destination that you choose. And then it's all going to come up on the screen in a spreadsheet, and it's going to say everything that you needed or asked for: name, date of birth, age, classes they're interested in, contact details, any previous experience, etc., etc. And then you can add a column at the end, which won't affect the Google form. It will still continue to update itself every time somebody fills out the form. And what I do is I just put at the beginning, actually, a column, and it's my notes column. And then I have a colour key. So personally for me, and this is what works for me, and it's not going to work for everybody, but just to give you an insight to what I do, I have a colour key which is red, amber and green. So red is, for example, someone that has declined if I've offered them a place, but they want to stay on the waiting list, say, till next time we let someone in, or perhaps they haven't got back to me and I need to do something with that. Amber is I've offered them a class and I'm in conversation with them, and I'm just kind of waiting to get that all confirmed. And then green is obviously they've been signed up. And then I know with every single person that's on my waiting list or subscription list what stage of the game I'm at, and then I just add a note box so that when I hover over that box I see it come up and everything's dated of what I've done. Every conversation is recorded, even think down to left message on answer phone, we'll try again tomorrow. It's just the way that it works well for me. I spent a year working in an estate agent the year before I went to dance college full time to raise some money to send me to college. And in my time there working as an estate agent, I kind of learned quite a lot of ways to basically take notes on a system for a case, and I just basically incorporated that into my running of my dance school, and it worked really well. So I still do that now. So that's how I would recommend doing that. Google Forms, absolutely brilliant if your software system, or you don't have a software system that does it for you. And then that is just ongoing, and eventually that becomes your waiting list. So when you get to a point where you don't have any space, people will still be directed to that form every single time. They'll put their information into the boxes, it will come up, and you've always got a record of where you're at with those people. Now, the way that I do it personally is my website is run through Wix, and I just embed that code into the page. So there's a button that says apply online. They click that, it takes them directly to the Google form, they fill it out, and then automatically it gets transferred to the spreadsheet that I chose for me to keep all of my information on. So every single time I get an inquiry, I'll have my conversation with them or my email thread with them, but ultimately they always get directed to that button, and then I've got all my information in one place. If I have someone ring me and I write something down, or someone emails me, things get lost. If I make sure I always direct them to that sheet, to that Google form, I know that I'm never going to lose any information, and that's obviously really important when you're looking to sign up new students. So yes, that is what I would recommend. Then what I would recommend is that you systemize your emails for when you're first having contact with a new student. Your first impression that you give is going to be through these early emails and conversations that you have, and if you look super organized and super professional from the start, then you're definitely going to be onto a winner. Parents or clients are going to be a lot more interested in your business if everything seems to be really organized and really on it. So I have got an email system which you would basically have your own version of, which is once you've received an application from somebody, they get a template sent to them directly. That template is all you have to change is their name and the parent name, and then you just send it over. That email is obviously just saying thank you, we've received, it's an acknowledgement, and we will be in touch soon. I personally only have 2 intakes a year because my school is full, but so I basically explain to them when the next intake will be, and that I'll be in touch with them as soon as possible. But if you're sort of letting people in throughout the year, then obviously you can just say straight into whatever it is that you're going to offer them. And so again, have your templates all lined up, so cut and paste, just saving time. Once you've written it once, you can go back and tweak things as you go along, but you've got your setup, so you haven't got to write a new email every single time. Cut, paste, done. This probably seems quite obvious, and I don't want to teach anyone to suck eggs, but in case that's not something you thought of, then that is what I would recommend. And then after you've done that, then you've got a whole format then of how things are going to work. So for example, you're offered a class, so you've got a template for that email, you wait for their response. They accept class, you've got a template for that email, absolutely thrilled that you're going to be joining us, this is your start date, that gets sent. Or they decline, you've got a different one saying, would you like us to keep you on the waiting list, or would you like us to remove your details, blah, 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 blah. So you've always got, a thread that you can just cut and paste over, and that systemizes everybody when they first either book in or apply or have any interest in your school. So that's how I would do it, and I hope that helps. But what I will do is I will sit down and think about the best way for me to deliver to you some training on systemizing. And again, everyone does it differently, and you can learn so much from everybody. But I can show you the ways that I've developed over the years that have basically everything just runs itself. It's all on automatic. I've got my school to a point now, guys, where I could literally just hire anyone that's tech savvy and just be like, there you go, that's how you run my school, because it is just so systemized. They can just literally, it's almost got a handbook, tells you how to run the school. Anyone could do it. And you want to get to that point, because the easier it is, and the more it's just running itself, the more time you've got to dedicate to the bits that you really, really enjoy doing, which it's going to be teaching, isn't it? Hopefully. So I hope that helps. There's a start. If anyone is struggling and doesn't know about Google Forms or doesn't have much experience with Google Forms, I'm actually going to do a small training on that in our group Zoom call at the end of this month. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, then I recommend doing that, because that is definitely part of it. I'm going to teach you how to use Google Forms and how to get it to direct to a spreadsheet and all those sorts of things. So if you don't know much about that, or you'd like a little bit more training on that, I'm going to do a little section on that in the group call, so look out for that then. So I hope that helps. That's the end of our questions for this week. They were good. I enjoyed doing those today. As always, my DMs are always open if you need any help or support. I'm always grateful to feedback, because obviously we're only on week 4. I mean, it's crazy really how much we've achieved in 4 weeks. We've got a new podcast dropping on Friday, which is all about transitioning from being a dance teacher to a dance school owner. So look out for that. And we're now on Spotify and Apple iTunes, so there's no excuse. You can listen to it on any device. Hooray. So yes, have a lovely week, guys. Enjoy the weather if you've got what we have, which is nice and sunny down here in Kent, and I will see you in the group. Take care. Bye bye.